How can a harmless walk home end a marriage? Why did one quiet moment under a streetlight turn into a public legal ending? Can a wife who thought she was just flirting for fun survive the day her husband calmly turns evidence into action? Before we dive deeper into the story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. I'm Liora, and before you judge me, just know it wasn't what it looked like. That's what I keep telling everyone. My friends, my mother, even myself. It was girls' night. We were laughing, maybe a little too loud, a little too long, and when the night ended, Noah offered to walk me home. That's all. Nothing happened. No secrets, no plans, no lies. Just a short walk, some streetlights, and a husband waiting on the porch who saw everything wrong in one harmless moment. I didn't think Evan would make a scene. He's not the type. He just watched, quiet, his face unreadable. The next morning, he barely spoke. I told myself he was being dramatic, that men always overreact when their egos get bruised. I tried to turn it into a joke, post something funny about having a gentleman escort home. People liked it, hundreds of hearts and laughing emojis. But after that, Evan started moving differently, colder, neater, like he was organizing something I couldn't see. I thought silence meant forgiveness. It didn't. It meant planning. And by the time I realized it, he wasn't my husband trying to talk things out. He was a man building a case. If you'd told me one short walk could wreck a marriage, I would have laughed. It started like every girl's night does, with too much energy and not enough sense. Mara had convinced me to come out, even though I'd spent the whole week buried under deadlines. I told Evan I needed a little break, just a few hours to breathe. He'd nodded, that patient nod that somehow felt like a lecture. He said, "Be careful," and I said, "It's just dinner." We both knew I was already annoyed. The hollow tap was packed when we got there. Dim lights, sticky tables, the kind of noise that hides anything you don't want to think about. Mara ordered the first round before I even sat down. We joked about work, about the guys at the next table who were obviously listening, about how our lives had become predictable. I didn't check my phone much, but every time the screen lit up, I saw Evan's name. He'd sent a text. "What time will you be home?" I ignored it. Another one came later. "Are you driving, or should I come get you?" I typed, "I'm fine," but didn't send it. That's when Noah appeared. He worked in another department, friendly, harmless. He asked if he could join us since he'd seen our group from across the bar. Mara waved him over instantly. She loves new attention. He was funny in that casual way that makes you forget you're married for a minute. When he teased me about my serious office face, I laughed louder than I needed to. Maybe too loud. Someone snapped a photo. Hours passed fast. By the time the bill came, most of the group had already left for ride shares. I pulled on my coat, realizing how late it was. The night air hit me hard, that quiet chill after music fades. Noah offered to walk me home. I said no at first, but he insisted. "You shouldn't walk alone this late," he said. It sounded practical, almost sweet. I texted Mara a quick, "made it home safe soon," and shoved my phone away. We walked under the orange streetlights, shoes clicking on the sidewalk. He talked about some work project I barely heard. I kept telling myself this was fine, normal. But when we reached my street, something felt off. Too still, too sharp. I saw the porch light on. Evan always left it off when I was out. My stomach twisted, but I pretended not to notice. Noah stopped near the gate and said he should make sure I got inside safely. I laughed it off, said, "You sound like my dad." He smiled. Then I saw a shape on the porch, a shadow at first, then clear. Evan, standing there with his phone in his hand. I froze mid-step. Noah didn't notice at first. He was still talking. I forced a quick goodbye, said, "Thanks for walking me," and walked fast toward the door. Evan didn't move. The phone screen lit his face just enough for me to see his eyes. Calm. Too calm. I expected shouting, maybe sarcasm. Instead, there was only the sound of a soft click as he turned and went inside. Inside, the living room lights were low. His jacket was still on the hook, his shoes neatly lined up. I said, "You're still up?" He looked up from the couch, expression unreadable. "You looked like you needed company," he said. The way he said, "you looked," made my chest tighten. I told him it wasn't what he thought. He said, "What do I think?" I rolled my eyes, told him not to be dramatic. He just nodded once. "Good night, Liora." Then he got up, walked past me, and went to the guest room. I stood there for a long minute, trying to feel angry, but all I felt was small. The quiet stretched out so far I could hear the refrigerator hum. I poured water just to make some sound. On the counter, his mug was next to mine, both empty. 2 lines again, never touching. The next morning, he acted normal. Too normal. Coffee brewing, toast, the usual hum of routine. I wanted to apologize, but pride won. I said, "You're really going to sulk over nothing?" He didn't look up. "Nothing?" I shrugged. "A coworker walked me home. That's literally it." He buttered his toast like he hadn't heard. When he finally spoke, he said, "I believe you." It should have comforted me, but his tone was strange, flat, careful. I said, "Then stop acting weird." He said, "I'm not." He left for work without another word. When I went to clean up, his mug was rinsed spotless. Mine still had lipstick on the rim. A petty contrast, but it stuck with me. Around noon, I checked my phone. Mara had already posted pictures from last night. One of them showed Noah and me laughing outside the bar, my hand on his arm. The caption read, "When girls' night turns legendary." My stomach dropped. I commented a laughing emoji to look casual, then scrolled past it like it didn't matter. That evening, when Evan came home, I tried to lighten the mood. "You'll never believe the nonsense people are saying about me online," I said, smiling too wide. He didn't bite. "I believe plenty," he said, hanging his jacket. I followed him into the kitchen, saying, "You really think I'd cheat over a walk?" He said, "You think this is about cheating?" That confused me. I said, "What else would it be about?" He didn't answer, just started unloading the dishwasher, clinking plates in rhythm. Later, when I went to bed, I noticed the guest room door was closed again. A faint light glowed underneath. I thought about knocking, but decided against it. Instead, I opened my phone and scrolled through comments again. One read, "Her husband must be chill to let that slide." I almost laughed, if they only knew. The next day, small things felt different. His calendar on the fridge had a new entry. Downtown 10:30. I asked if he had a meeting. He said, "Just personal errands." I teased him, said he was finally trying self-care. He smiled a little, said, "Something like that." Then he kissed the top of my head like he used to and left. For a second, I thought that meant everything was fine. At work, Noah stopped by my desk, awkward. "Everything okay?" he asked. I said, "Yeah, why wouldn't it be?" He said he felt bad if walking me home caused problems. I told him it didn't, that my husband just needed to relax. I even joked, "He's too serious sometimes." But when Noah left, I couldn't focus. Something about Evan's calm face last night kept replaying in my head. When I got home, he was already there, laptop open. "Long day?" I asked. He said, "Productive." I tried to peek at the screen, but he turned it slightly. "Work stuff?" I asked. "Household," he said. I laughed. "You never handle bills." He said, "Learning new skills." Then he closed the laptop gently, stood up and said, "I'm making dinner." I wanted to say thank you, but it felt like a trap. Instead, I told him not to make a big deal out of last night. He said, "I'm not. I'm just adjusting." His voice had that same polite tone he used with clients. It scared me more than anger would have. When he went upstairs, I noticed his phone on the counter. The screen was dark, but a soft vibration buzzed once. A message preview flashed. File uploaded successfully. I didn't know what that meant. Probably work, probably nothing. That night I couldn't sleep. I stood on the balcony watching the street where it all started. Same light, same silence. I kept thinking about how small that walk was, how harmless, and yet, inside our house, everything already felt rearranged, like the furniture of our lives had shifted 1 inch to the left, just enough to trip over. I told myself tomorrow would smooth it out. It always did. We'd talk, laugh about the misunderstanding, move on. That's what marriages do, right? They bend before they break. I just didn't realize that some bends are only the sound of something quietly snapping. Monday morning came with that fake kind of calm that tricks you into thinking things are normal again. Evan left early, same as always, pressed his tie smooth, said something about catching traffic, and disappeared before I finished brushing my hair. I told myself it meant we were fine. He wouldn't act so routine if he were truly angry. Still, the kitchen felt too clean, like a hotel room after checkout. The mugs from last night were gone, counters wiped spotless. I noticed one small yellow sticky note on the fridge that said, "Pick up paper towels." His handwriting was neat, precise. I peeled it off, wondering why it bothered me. At work, I tried to shake the uneasy feeling. Mara texted me 3 times before lunch. "You okay?" I replied totally, added a laughing emoji for good measure. Then she sent a link to a new post she'd made. It was a collage of our girls' night, me, Noah, the cocktails, the glow of bar lights. The caption read, "When grown-ups pretend it's still college." I laughed in the break room to prove, mostly to myself, that it didn't matter. The post already had likes piling up. Noah walked by just then, heading toward the printer. He looked awkward, like he wanted to say something but didn't know where to start. I said, "You survived the weekend?" He smiled weakly. "Barely. Internet's having fun with us, huh?" I waved my hand. "People need hobbies." He nodded, then lowered his voice. "Your husband's okay, right?" I shrugged. "Of course. He just likes things quiet." Noah's expression said he didn't buy it, but he didn't press. When he left, I noticed the office manager, Dana, watching me from her glass cubicle. Before lunch, my phone buzzed. A notification from our office page. I'd been tagged in a staff photo someone took at the bar. I hadn't realized anyone from work was there. In the picture, Noah's head was tilted toward me, mid-laugh, and my hand rested on his arm. The angle made it look closer than it was. The comments started immediately, mostly playful, but one said, "Hope HR's not watching." Another said, "Couple goals." I tried to laugh it off, but my face felt hot. I clicked hide post and shoved my phone into my drawer. That afternoon, Evan texted, "What time will you be home?" I stared at the message, thinking about how strange it was that he even asked. Usually he just waited. I typed, "Not late," then deleted it. Instead, I sent, "Working on a client file. Might stay a bit longer." He didn't reply. By 5, the tension at my desk was thick enough to touch. Dana called me into her office just as I was packing up. She smiled too tightly and gestured for me to close the door. "Nothing serious," she said. "Just wanted to touch base about the social post." I blinked. "The one Mara made?" She nodded. "Corporate noticed it because our company name was tagged. It's not a reprimand, just a friendly reminder to keep personal outings separate from professional branding." Her tone was light, but I could feel the judgment under it. I laughed like it was all absurd. "Of course. Total misunderstanding." She said, "Good. I know how quickly things can be misread online." When I left her office, I saw Noah pretending to type something at his desk. I mouthed, "Don't worry," but he didn't smile back. I couldn't tell if he was embarrassed for me or himself. On the drive home, the city lights looked sharper than usual. Every red light felt longer. I thought about deleting my social media entirely, but then what? That would make it look like guilt. By the time I pulled into the driveway, I'd rehearsed a dozen calm responses in case Evan brought it up. He didn't. He was at the table, laptop open, face calm but distant. "Dinner's in the oven," he said. I laughed lightly. "Look at you being domestic." He didn't answer, just tapped something on his keyboard. I poured a glass of water, sat across from him. "Rough day?" I asked. He said, "No, productive." His tone was careful, deliberate. I asked what he was working on. "Just organizing," he said, "trying to stay ahead." I leaned over playfully. "Organizing what?" He closed the laptop without looking at me. "Household." I laughed. "You make that sound like a corporation." He smiled faintly. "Maybe it should be." Dinner was silent except for the sound of cutlery. When I said, "You're really not mad anymore, right?" he said, "I'm not anything right now." That confused me more than anger would have. I told him everyone was overreacting online. He said, "People usually reflect what they see." I said, "You're starting to sound like a therapist." He replied, "Just observing." Later, while loading the dishwasher, I heard a faint beep behind me. Evan was near the hallway closet. "What's that sound?" I asked. He said, "Timer." The word didn't fit. I peeked past him but saw nothing. Just the hall light and his shadow. Before bed, I scrolled through Mara's messages again. She deleted the collage and replaced it with a single picture of her cocktail glass captioned, "Good vibes only." I thanked her for being a real friend. She replied, "You should probably talk to him, though." I ignored it. When I got upstairs, the guest room door was open. The sheets were perfectly folded, bed smooth. I almost felt relieved until I noticed a second pillow on the chair, not on the bed. I didn't know why that mattered, but it did. My phone buzzed again. Evan had sent me a screenshot from someone's post showing the picture of me and Noah. His message read, "Is this what people mean by innocent fun?" I typed back, "It's being blown out of proportion." He didn't respond. The next morning, he was gone before dawn again. On the kitchen counter sat 2 mugs, one empty, one half full, and next to them, a piece of paper with small typed text. I thought it was a bill until I saw my name at the top. It wasn't official, just a list titled Accounts and Notes. It had bullet points, utilities, bank login reminders, passwords. Normal things, but at the bottom was one odd line, camera, porch, back up to drive. I crumpled the paper before thinking, tossed it into the bin. At work, people were whispering. Someone must have screenshotted that office photo before I hid it. By lunch, I heard 2 interns giggling near the vending machine. One said, "She's married, right?" I walked past them like I didn't care, but my hands shook when I reached for my drink. I called Mara from the stairwell. "Can you believe people?" I said. "They act like I committed a crime." She said, "You didn't help yourself posting about it." I snapped, "You sound like him." She went quiet. Then, softly, "Maybe you should stop trying to win the comments section and just fix things at home." I hung up before answering. That evening, I came home to find the living room spotless again, couch cushions perfectly aligned. Evan was in the kitchen, printing something. I said, "Wow, we've turned domestic." He said, "Order helps me think." I said, "You're making me look bad with all this productivity." He replied, "You don't need help with that." It sounded like a joke, but the air between us was too still to laugh. When the printer beeped again, I asked what he was printing. "Nothing important," he said. But as he spoke, a blank sheet slid out. He picked it up, studied it like it meant something, then set it aside. Before bed, I opened my phone and checked the Porch camera app out of habit. The feed showed the front steps, empty, quiet. The recording list said, "Last upload, Sunday, 12:42 a.m. The same night I'd come home. I clicked it. The screen flashed white, then the image froze. Me at the gate, Noah standing close behind. A light flared from the porch, Evan's phone flash. The video ended there. I stared until the app timed out. Then I closed it, turned off the light, and told myself he was just saving proof of nothing. Just a man trying to organize his world. I repeated that until sleep came, half convincing, half afraid of what he'd organize next. By Wednesday, the office had turned into a whisper factory. People spoke softer when I entered the break room, smiled too brightly when I passed by. Noah avoided eye contact entirely. I hated how obvious it felt. I wanted to stand on a chair and shout that nothing happened, but the more I tried to ignore it, the louder the silence became. Even my email tone started sounding defensive. Just to clarify, for transparency, no misunderstanding intended. I kept writing those words, like they could fix my image. At lunch, Mara called. "You're trending in our little corner again," she said. I groaned. "You're joking." She wasn't. Someone had made a meme using the picture of me laughing under the streetlight. The caption read, "When your husband's the porch light and you're still in the street." She tried to make it sound funny, but I felt my throat tighten. "People seriously have no lives," I said. She hesitated. "Liora, maybe you should stop commenting altogether. It's just feeding it." I told her I wasn't going to let strangers define me. She sighed. "You're doing that all by yourself." I hung up before she could lecture me further. When I turned, Dana was standing in the doorway holding a stack of papers. "Quick word," she asked. Inside her office, she kept her tone polite but clipped. "I had to speak to Noah today. HR flagged the social chatter." I said, "You mean the meme circus?" She nodded. "It's affecting workflow. Just maybe keep things quiet for a bit." I smiled tightly. "So now I can't even talk to coworkers?" She said, "You can. Just don't give people reasons to watch." The phrase reasons to watch followed me all day. At 4, I glanced at my phone and saw a message from Evan. "Need you home early tonight." It was the first direct request he'd made all week. I replied, "Everything okay?" He sent a single word, "Fine." When I walked into the house that evening, the lights were on but dim. The dining table was set for 2, perfectly arranged, like a photo from a catalogue. He stood by the counter, sleeves rolled up, chopping vegetables in rhythmic precision. "Wow," I said, forcing a laugh. "Am I in trouble or are we celebrating something?" He didn't look up. Neither. I just thought dinner might help us talk. I poured wine for both of us, but he didn't touch his glass. "So," I said, "what are we talking about?" He said, "I think we see things differently." I nodded slowly. "You mean the internet chaos? That'll pass." He set the knife down. "No, I mean what respect looks like." His voice was calm, almost too soft. I started to protest, but he held up a hand. "You said I was overreacting. Maybe I am, but if the roles were reversed, what would you think?" I hated that question. "I wouldn't have turned it into a public drama," I said quickly. "I'd trust my spouse." He gave a small smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You trust people very selectively, Liora." The silence after that stretched thin. The oven timer beeped. He turned it off with deliberate slowness. I noticed his phone on the counter, the screen glowing faintly. A folder was open. Accounts. I saw subfolders labeled bills, photos, statements. He noticed me looking and closed it with a single tap. "What's that?" I asked. "Organization," he said again. "You really like that word lately. It keeps things clear." Dinner was good. Too good. The kind of careful meal someone makes when they're trying not to explode. Halfway through, my phone buzzed. Mara again. Evan said, "You can answer if it's important." I silenced it. "No, it's fine." He nodded. "I'm glad something is." Afterward, I offered to clean up, but he was already rinsing dishes. "You can go rest," he said. "I've got it." His voice sounded like a recording, pleasant, distant. Upstairs, I lingered outside the guest room. The door was slightly ajar this time. Inside, I glimpsed his briefcase on the bed, laptop plugged in, an envelope half tucked under a folder. I almost went in, but footsteps creaked behind me. Evan stood at the end of the hall. "Looking for something?" I jumped. "Just laundry." He nodded, passed me and closed the door quietly behind him. That night, I dreamed of flashes, camera light, porch light, phone light, all pointing at me. I woke up sweaty, the room too still. His side of the bed was cold again. The next morning, I decided to take control of the story. On the way to work, I opened my social app and typed, "Funny how people love to judge what they don't understand. Married doesn't mean invisible." I added a smiling selfie, thinking it would show confidence. Within an hour, comments flooded in. Some supportive, most not. "Still playing victim?" one read. Another said, "Maybe your husband should post next." I deleted the post, but not before a coworker screenshotted it. By noon, everyone had seen it. I overheard someone whisper, "Her poor husband," as I passed the copier. I told myself they were jealous. I even texted Mara. I refused to apologize for having friends. She sent back one line, "It's not the friendship they're seeing." When I got home that evening, Evan was waiting in the living room. He'd changed out of his work clothes and looked strangely formal in a pressed shirt. "Sit down," he said. My stomach flipped. He opened a small notebook. "I want to ask you something, and I'd like an honest answer." I tried to laugh. "You sound like a lawyer." He said, "Maybe I've been learning from one." He asked where my phone was at 12:42 the night Noah walked me home. I blinked. "Seriously, you're tracking my phone now?" He said, "No, the camera saw you both stop before you came in." His calmness made it worse. "You're spying on me," I snapped. "I checked the system you installed," he said evenly. "That's not spying, it's reviewing." I wanted to shout, but the air in the room felt too thin. "This is insane," I said. "You can't just act like you're some detective." He didn't raise his voice. "I'm not. I'm a husband trying to make sense of his life." He closed the notebook and stood. "I'll be late tomorrow. Don't wait up." "Where are you going?" "Downtown," he said. I frowned. "Another errand?" "You could call it that." After he went upstairs, I sat there staring at the notebook he'd left on the table. I knew I shouldn't, but I opened it. Inside, neat handwriting filled the pages. Dates, notes, references. March 17th, Porch 1242. March 18th, office tag photo. March 19th, social post removed. At the bottom of the latest page, one line read, "Meeting personal, Thursday 10th of 15. I slammed it shut, heart pounding. He was keeping records, actual records, of me. I told myself he'd never use them. He was just proving a point, but the thought of him writing down my life like data made me feel cornered. That night, when he came back from brushing his teeth, I asked if he wanted to watch a movie. He looked surprised, then said, "Sure." We sat on opposite ends of the couch, the glow from the TV flickering between us. A romantic scene came on, two people under a streetlight. I reached for the remote, embarrassed, but Evan's voice stopped me. "Funny how small moments can define everything," he said quietly. One step too far, one word too loud. I said, "You're being poetic now." He looked straight at me. "No, just observant." When the movie ended, he stood and turned off the TV. The room fell dark except for the blinking route to light. He said goodnight, and I watched his silhouette disappear down the hall. I wanted to follow, to shake him, to make him fight so I could feel something other than this careful silence. But I stayed still, hearing again the faint click of the guest room door locking. I went to bed scrolling through old photos of us, vacations, birthdays, mornings that looked easy. Each one felt like evidence of another life, one that couldn't be organized into folders or notes. I told myself tomorrow would be different. It had to be, because surely no marriage ends with just silence and lists. Surely. Thursday morning arrived with sunlight that felt fake, bright but cold. I woke up alone again, the other side of the bed smooth, untouched. On the nightstand sat Evan's note in his tidy handwriting. Breakfast in the fridge. Have a good day. I stared at it like it might explain something. The fridge held 2 perfect plates, each labelled with sticky notes, yours and mine. I laughed to myself. Who labels breakfast in their own house? On my drive to work, I kept replaying our conversation from the night before. The notebook, the calm questions, that awful line about respect. I told myself he'd cool off once this meme storm faded, but when I parked, a text from Mara popped up. You need to see what people are saying now. I opened it and felt my stomach drop. Someone had posted a slowed-down version of the Porch video, complete with dramatic music. The caption read, "When he said be careful, and she said it's just a walk." The comments were brutal. At my desk, the office was too quiet. Noah wasn't there. His chair was pushed in, the little plant on his desk gone. When Dana walked past, I asked where he was. She said, he requested to work remotely for a while. Her tone was neutral, but her eyes weren't. I felt something inside me twist, anger, guilt, something. I wanted to message him, ask what that meant, but what could I say? Sorry for ruining your job because people can't mind their business. By noon, my phone buzzed again. Evan. Home early tonight. Need to talk about schedules. I read it 3 times. Schedules. Not feelings, not us. I replied, okay. I stopped by the supermarket after work to pick up groceries, thinking maybe I could make dinner and show I still cared. The cashier gave me a look I couldn't read. As I carried the bags to the car, I saw our neighbor, Mrs. Kelly, by her trunk. She said, "Tell Evan I hope he's feeling better." I frowned. Better? She nodded. He looked so pale yesterday, sitting in his car for an hour. I thought he might be sick. I forced a smile, said I'd pass the message along, but inside I was buzzing. What was he doing sitting out here for an hour? When I got home, his car was parked perfectly straight in the driveway. Inside, the living room looked staged again. Pillows aligned, floor spotless, the faint smell of printer toner in the air. Evan was at the table with his laptop, a stack of papers beside him. "Hey," I said, lifting the grocery bags. "I thought I'd make dinner tonight." He looked up briefly. "That's fine. I've already eaten." Something about his voice made me set the bags down too hard. "You could have told me," I said. He shrugged. "Didn't know you'd be home." I laughed dryly. "You texted me to be home early." He didn't answer, just started typing again. I stepped closer. "What are you doing?" he said. "Household management. You'll appreciate it soon." That line made my skin prickle. "You keep saying that like it means something," I snapped. He looked up calmly. "It does. You'll see." Dinner felt pointless, so I reheated his labeled plate from the fridge. The food was perfect, but I couldn't taste it. When I went to throw the empty container away, I noticed the trash bin was nearly empty, except for shredded paper. Tiny white strips like snow. "Cleaning spree?" I asked. "Old receipts," he said without looking up. Later, I found myself pacing the hallway, glancing toward the guest room. The door was slightly open again, light spilling through the crack. I told myself to ignore it. Then I heard a drawer slide shut and a quiet click, metal on metal. I pushed the door wider. He turned slowly from the desk, expression calm. "Need something?" he asked. "You locking drawers now?" I said. He nodded. "Privacy helps order." I tried to laugh. "You're acting like we're strangers." He said, "Are we not?" That hurt more than yelling would have. I told him he was blowing everything out of proportion, that people online didn't matter. He said, "People online aren't my concern." I asked what was. He said, "Evidence." I froze. "Evidence of what?" He stood, walked past me without answering, and went downstairs. I followed, my voice sharper than I meant. "You're not making sense, Evan. This is weird. You're acting—" He cut me off softly, like someone who's had enough. We stood in the kitchen, the overhead light harsh and too bright. I crossed my arms. Enough of what? Me laughing, being human? He said, enough of watching you turn everything into a performance. I rolled my eyes. Oh, please, you think you're so noble because you don't post online. Everyone shares their life. That's how the world works. He said, maybe, but not everyone builds theirs out of lies. That silence after nearly cracked me. I picked up my phone, needing something to hold. You know what, I'm done apologizing. You want to play the victim, fine, but you're not the saint you think you are. He said nothing. He just turned, opened the fridge, and moved my labeled plate to the back like it didn't belong. The next day, Friday, I left work early, just to breathe. I drove to the park, sat in the car scrolling through photos of us, trying to decide which version of our life was real. The comments online had mostly died down, replaced by other scandals. That should have comforted me, but it didn't. I texted Mara, I think he's planning something. She called immediately. What do you mean? I told her about the notebooks, the files, the shredded papers. She said, maybe he's preparing to leave. I laughed too hard. He'd never leave. He's not that type. She went quiet. Liora, sometimes the quiet ones surprise you. When I pulled into our driveway, his car was gone. For the first time all week, I felt relief. Inside, I found a single sticky note on the counter. Dinner 6:30. We need to talk properly. I stared at it, confused. Was this the peace talk I'd been waiting for? At 6:30, he wasn't home. I waited until 8. Still nothing. I called his phone, no answer. At 9, I heard the garage door open. He walked in calm as ever, carrying 2 folders. Traffic? I asked, voice dripping sarcasm. He set the folders on the table. I told you we'd talk. I gestured to the clock. 3 hours late, perfect start. He ignored that, opening one folder. Inside were neatly printed pages, our bank statements, bills, and some document labeled household liabilities. I frowned. You're seriously balancing budgets right now, he said. I'm clarifying assets. Something in his tone made my skin crawl. You sound like an accountant, he said. I consulted one. For a moment, I didn't move. You what? He nodded. To make sure everything's clean. I laughed, but it came out thin. Are you divorcing me or doing taxes? He looked straight at me. I'm making sure we both know what's ours. I felt my pulse in my ears. You're scaring me, I said. You wanted honesty, he replied. This is it. The front doorbell rang suddenly. We both looked at each other. Expecting someone? I asked. He shook his head. I opened the door, but no one was there. Just a delivery envelope on the mat. No name, no return address. I held it up. This you? He said. Not yet. I set it on the counter, heart racing. Evan, whatever you're doing, stop. Please. You're making this bigger than it is. He said quietly, it's already bigger than you realize. He picked up the folders, stacked them neatly, and added one more note at the top. Follow up Monday 9 South. Then he looked at me like he was memorizing something. You might want to rest, he said. Next week's going to be busy. I wanted to ask what that meant, but he was already walking upstairs. The last sound I heard before his door clicked shut was the faint hum of the shredder, starting again, slow and steady, like breathing. I stood there in the kitchen, surrounded by neat piles of paper, the smell of toner still in the air, realizing that for the first time, I didn't know which of us was pretending anymore. Saturday morning felt like waking up inside a waiting room. The whole house was too quiet, the kind of silence that hums. Evan was already gone. His side of the bed was smooth, pillow cold. On the nightstand was another note, same neat handwriting. Errands. Back later. I stared at the word errands like it could crack open if I just kept looking. Downstairs, the kitchen table was clean except for a single mug and a folded dish towel. No crumbs, no coffee smell, no trace of him except a faint ring of moisture on the counter where the mug had been. It was eerie how clean everything had become. The more he organized, the messier my head felt. I tried to distract myself by cleaning too, wiping surfaces that didn't need it, refolding towels, rearranging spice jars alphabetically. It felt like pretending we were still a team. At noon, I called Mara. "He's turning our house into a filing cabinet," I said. She laughed nervously. "At least it's not a crime scene." I didn't laugh back. "He's got folders now, labels, schedules. Who even writes down follow up Monday like it's a job?" She asked if I'd tried talking to him. I said he doesn't talk anymore. He documents. She sighed. Maybe he's trying to make sense of it all. I wanted to say that I was too. Instead, I said I was going to fix everything tonight. "You think a dinner can fix months of pride?" she asked. "Not dinner," I said. "A reminder, something public, something that tells everyone we're fine." That afternoon, I opened my laptop and scrolled through old anniversary photos. There was one of us by the lake, his arm around me, both of us squinting into the sun. I posted it with the caption, "Through storms and sun, still here." I watched the likes roll in. Comments flooded. "Beautiful couple, stay strong." For a moment, I felt powerful again. It didn't matter what was happening in this house if the world believed we were okay. By evening, he still wasn't home. I set the table anyway. Candles, wine glasses, the good plates. I even changed into the soft blue dress he used to love. When his car finally pulled up, I heard the slow crunch of tires on the driveway, precise and measured, like everything he did now. He stepped inside, eyebrows lifting when he saw the candles. "What's this?" he asked. "Peace offering," I said. "I thought maybe we could hit reset." He looked at the table, then at me. Didn't realize we were paused. I forced a smile. "Don't do that." We sat. I poured the wine, tried to fill the silence with small talk. He nodded at intervals, eyes unreadable. After a few minutes, I mentioned the post, casually. "People were so sweet online today. Everyone said how good we looked together." He didn't respond. I pushed harder. "It's nice to show people we're fine, right?" Finally, he spoke. "You care more about strangers' opinions than your husband's silence." I said, "Silence is an opinion, Evan. You've been voting with it for weeks." He folded his napkin carefully. "You think this is about a photo, Liora. It's not. It's about what truth looks like when no one's watching." I frowned. "You sound rehearsed." He looked at me. "I am. I've practiced this for months." Something about that made my stomach drop. "Practiced what?" He stood and walked toward the counter, where his phone was charging. "You'll understand soon," he said. "I'm handling it properly." I followed him. "What does that mean? Properly?" He didn't answer, just unplugged his phone and slid it into his pocket. "You're scaring me," I said. He turned, voice level. "No, I'm setting things right." I tried to laugh, but it came out shaky. "You can't set a marriage like it's an appliance." He said, "You already did. You adjusted it for public display." I snapped, "You're being dramatic. Everyone fights, everyone says things online. You're the one making it big." He studied me for a long moment, then said quietly, "That's the difference between us. You measure damage by the size of the crowd. I measure it by the silence that follows." He started walking upstairs. I called after him, "So what now? You're just going to leave?" He paused at the top step. "No, I'm just going to finish something." Then he disappeared into the guest room. I stood there breathing hard, eyes stinging. My phone buzzed. Mara again. "You okay?" I typed, "He said he's handling it properly." She replied, "What does that mean?" I wrote, "I don't know, but he's so calm it scares me." She sent, "Maybe he's just done arguing." I wanted to believe that. Later, I went upstairs to check on him. The guest room door was open this time. He wasn't there. The desk was empty except for a single USB stick labeled with today's date. I picked it up, turned it over. Nothing else. A chill ran through me. I set it back exactly where it was. In our bedroom, I tried to focus on breathing. I opened my laptop again, checked the post. The likes had slowed, but new comments had started appearing. Didn't he unfollow you? Check your husband's page. My hands trembled as I opened his profile. The last thing he'd shared was a plain background with a single line. Some truths need light, not noise. Dozens of people had reacted. My heart pounded. I rushed downstairs and found him sitting on the couch, eyes on the dark TV screen. "What did you post?" I demanded. He didn't look at me. "Something honest," I said. "You're trying to humiliate me." He said, "No, I'm correcting the record." I could feel heat crawling up my neck. "If you want to end this, just say it." He finally looked at me. "I already did. You just didn't hear it over your applause." For a long time, neither of us moved. Then he stood, straightened his shirt, and said softly, "I'll handle the rest through proper channels." The way he said channels sounded official. I laughed nervously. "You sound like a press release." He said, "Maybe I've had enough practice watching one." He walked to the front door, shoes clicking softly. "Where are you going?" I asked. "To make sure everything is documented." I stepped forward. "Evan, stop. You're not thinking straight." He met my eyes, steady, almost gentle. "This is the first time I've thought clearly in years." The door closed behind him. I sat down hard on the couch, surrounded by the perfect stillness he'd built. My phone buzzed again. Another comment notification. People were already dissecting his post, speculating, tagging me. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped the phone. I wanted to text him, to beg, to yell. Instead, I just stared at the screen until it dimmed, then at the USB still sitting on the guest desk upstairs. When I finally looked out the window, the porch light was on again, same soft amber glow from that night. But this time, no one was waiting outside. Only the empty street, the quiet house, and the growing certainty that whatever properly meant, it was already in motion, and I was too late to stop it. Monday morning, I saw him again, but not at home. I'd followed the calendar alert on his phone, downtown 10:40. When I reached the courthouse lobby, he was already there, standing beside a clerk. He didn't flinch when he saw me. The clerk handed me an envelope, official seal pressed clean. My name printed sharp across the front. Inside, the first line read, "Petition for separation and temporary orders." I froze, the words swimming. Around us, people paused, phones half raised. I whispered his name, but he just said, "It's all in writing now." Then he turned toward the exit, leaving me with papers that felt heavier than any fight we'd ever had. The clerk waited politely for me to sign the acknowledgement of receipt. When I did, the pen trembled so much the ink bled through. Outside, cameras flashed. Inside, the echo of his calm voice lingered like proof.